Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Pete. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, and communications, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director and a subject from the film, Pete. We have with us today Bret Parker, the director, and Pete Barma, the subject from the film. They're joining us from San Francisco today. Hello, Bret and Pete, and how are you?
Good morning. Hello. We're really well. How are you today?
I'm well too, thank you. So it's so great to have the both of you here. I know that the both of you are married, and I just want to know how did the two of you meet each other?
We actually met through a mutual friend. So it was an old college friend of Pete's and a colleague of mine, a work colleague, and we met through her. So that was about 21 years ago.
So and Brett, how did you learn this? Well, Pete, let me ask you, how did you tell Brett the story, your story right away? How long before you told
Well, I
Brett?
tell lots of stories, so I'm very much a fan of my childhood. So I have a million stories to tell Brett, and this was probably one, if people can relate to, like a family dinner story. My brother's around, my dad, my mom. Just probably always told it partly because it was funny, and my mom, being a big part of it. So I think we just told it over the years, made fun of how I never, wore that underwear again ever the rest of my life or, things of that nature. So I think over time, I don't think it was an intentional, like, here's a story I want to tell you. It's just part of the fabric of my family.
I see. So more than about almost 20 years has gone by since the two of you had met and married. Why did you decide to make the film now?
Well, it's interesting because we have I'm an animator at Pixar, and there's a cooperative there where you basically you can make your own film, and it's all on your own time. So I think through the years and through my career there, I started, and I was really focused on the practice of animation. And I think over time it became more about leaning into filmmaking in general and telling stories. And so with the opportunity to be able to make our own film through the cooperative, this became the story that just kind of kept coming up. And really, because it's a story about acceptance and change, and then and especially now, I mean, we started making this story before sort of the issues around LGBTQ community became so politicized in the United States. And then that subject sort of exploded right as we were finishing up the film. And so it became really sort of even more important to get this message out, and a message for support in the community.
Absolutely, yeah. Timing is everything. Pete, and for when this idea came up to actually make this film, did you approach Brett to say, let's do this, or did Brett approach you?
She definitely approached me. I mean, I would, I think it's so intimidating to make a film about a story in your life, whether it's animated or not. So she definitely approached me. The vision is really all Brett's, the creative vision behind the film, from the look to how the story was told. So I would have probably not also picked narration as my own voice to be there, because that would not been my first choice either. But again, Brett's vision really unfolded through the whole process.
I'm going to ask you about some production elements a little bit, but I have to ask you this question right now. For the voice, was there any altering of your voice, or were you able to, play a young, make a younger voice?
I'll answer the first part. I mean, Bret's an amazing director. She also does a lot of voice acting, so she's pretty comfortable in that space. But I pretty much cried the whole time.
Yeah. No, it was interesting because it is just her voice. We didn't alter it anyway. But when I was recording her, she kept breaking down in tears and she would stop talking. And so I'd be like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. Like, let's do another take. And then she would stop talking. And finally I was like, listen, if you finish the sentence, I can figure out how to use it. But if the words don't come out of your mouth, we'll never be able to use it. So, but it was just her voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So, right. I mean, Pete, can you do your voice right now for us without crying? Can you say
I don't know if I can. I can like, hi, I'm Pete. I can get
Oh,
that.
there you go. That was really good. That was
Yeah, but she
really
managed
good.
to get my mother at 80 years old to sound not quite 25, but young as well. So we actually recorded her in her closet at home in Florida. So it was super
Yeah.
great. The whole thing,
Oh,
that whole
that's
process would be, again, something I never imagined I would ever participate in, but it was super fun. But I will probably cry at some point.
exactly. That was super fun to do it. So you have the idea, you're making the film. How long did it take to actually make the film from start to finish?
Well, animation is super slow. And like I said, everyone literally who worked on the film volunteered their time. So it was all done like after work or on the weekends. And from start to finish, it probably took around 2 years, almost exactly 2 years, which I felt pretty good about. It's really interesting because it's tricky to ask someone who's volunteering their time to like volunteer faster. But yeah, so it took about 2 years. There was a lot of great energy around the project, and it was really a labor of love.
Exactly. And Pete, what uh, input did you have into the film? I know you're not an animator, but did you give Bret some direction? Say, well, maybe I want to do this or that.
You know what? Bret was great about just continuing to talk to me more about the story. The more we talked about the story, like we had told the nuance of it over and over again, like we mentioned earlier, but the more she asked questions, the deeper we got, and the emotions of the story was able to kind of come to the surface. Because I'm 57 now, and I don't think I had really tapped in for a long time to the emotions around that moment. And in the same way, speaking to my mom really started to bring some things to light in our conversation. So Bret directed all of that. My input was like more about the story, but also like, that's my dad's car look like this, or our house, or our cul-de-sac, little nuances of what my life would have been like on that street at that time, and what it felt like and how we wanted to present it. But really, Bret was the master of, I didn't realize there was so much emotions to this story until we started diving into it. And that was where Bret came in and then the look, and she can talk more about that. That was all really her pushing. We wanted to make it feel like that time period.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, Pete, you had the images from when you were a child too. And I like the way, Bret, you incorporated that into the film as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Really good. So the production, the story itself, when we how true did you remain to the story, Bret? You've heard this story from Pete lots of times, I'm sure. How did you add anything different than the actual story just for film's sake? How true did you remain to the story?
Well, so that's a really interesting question. It's essentially it's essentially as it happened. But we definitely added, like we added additional friends and additional sort of like her mom. It was really interesting interviewing her mom around this moment, because that's where a lot of the lines came when the people in the stands get so angry. she really relayed what happened that day in a way that Pete hadn't been able to absorb. And some of the lines, like she hadn't heard, like, but because her mom had really protected her somewhat from that moment at the time. But we also fabricated lines, to like add to the moment and things like that, just to kind of make it a little bit more of a complete story. So we embellished, but
Right.
for
But the main point of the story was there. So let's go back to the that moment when the fans reacted angrily. Pete, do you remember exactly how you felt and when your mom spoke up for you?
Yeah, I mean, my mom is very loud in the stands, the clapper. So she did shield me from some of their more aggressive stuff, like later in life that came up. She did a very good job. I don't know if anybody else has been to Little League baseball. It can be pretty intense for everybody, but she was able to shield me from a lot of that. But it's kind of interesting now. It's almost more like it was like I had put that down. Like I had such a good experience after that and the years that followed. It was like I tried to forget that those moments early on occurred until we started talking about it. I'm like, oh gosh, that was terrible, so I started to pick up on that again, the emotions, but I think for me, it probably wasn't as aggressive as it felt for my mom. My mom really took the brunt of that aggression from the until they realized who she was.
Right. I see that. And the other point of that I want to elaborate on is what you did, Bret, was how you made the mom, well, just all the characters so likable except the fans in the stand. And the mom was strong, but yet polite in a sense. And it was just really warm and endearing. I mean, when the film ended, you just wanted more. It says, is that it? When's the next episode? So, tell us a little bit about the time you spent to really develop the characters in the film.
I think that was really about, well, a couple of things. I mean, one was really like, to Pete's note, the more we sort of peeled back the layers of the story, right? And trying to get into the why and the how and how it felt, and really being able to create that as a whole, and being able to then bring her mom in, because her mom really has been such an ally for Pete, and really accepting. She has her own journey, of course, in Pete finding her identity, right? And her relationship with that, but truly trying to like just kind of peel back the layers and let the emotions come through, and developing those characters, those supporting characters, and really also, like with the kids especially, showing how kids are the ones who are never care. It's never the kids who have an issue, right? The kids are always just kids, and they're really loving and supporting it at heart. So that was a really important part that we wanted to make sure came through in the story.
Right. That was really well done with that aspect. Looking back now at the film, is there anything that you would do differently? Do you wish you had made it sooner? Would you add something, take something out?
It's really interesting because animation is like, not a lot ended up on the cutting room floor because it's so slow and so hard to make. You kind of try never to do that. There were definitely things look wise. We were really inspired by like Winnie the Pooh, and that original sort of ink and watercolor look. And that was ironically one of the hardest things, was to try to develop that look and to push that forward. There was more I wanted to do in terms of the look of the film, and we just ran out of time. I was really happy with where we ended up, but there's always more that you want to sort of like try to get to and can't quite. You run out of time. So
And any thoughts of expanding this, trying to make this into a series or comic strip or something like that?
Yeah, we've gotten that question a lot. And right now we're working on a feature, sort of a queer coming of age story, which follows Pete navigating, life and young love in the 70s. So taking
And 80s. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And this is screened at different festivals. Tell us about some of the responses you received.
You want to take that?
We were talking about it earlier before we started recording, that it's been really interesting because we had no idea where this film would go, but it is taken off and it's been in so many festivals, but both mainstream festivals as well as queer festivals. And it's interesting, we get very different responses. When we're in front of a mainstream audience, they really are attracted to Pete, the character. And they really support Pete and they just feel for Pete emotionally. If we're in front of a predominantly queer audience, they really are rooting for Mom. Mom becomes such a big figure, bigger figure than we ever really thought would mean so much to people. And then lots of conversations afterwards, mostly with parents.
Yeah, it's been interesting that we've been really lucky because it's been overwhelming, really, the positive response around the film. And we've had a lot of parents come up to us and say how it opened conversations with their kids. And I think, especially at a time right now where tensions are so high around gender identity, and it's such a politicized topic, it's just been amazing to be able to share the film, and if it's opening up conversations and doors to communication, it's like more than anything we could have asked for.
Exactly. And it's also opening up just like the innocence of youth, like you said earlier, the children just want to be children. And it's just nice. When I saw, when you open it up with them playing baseball in the cul-de-sac, and it's just like, I wish we could see more of that now. The kids being inside. And I think a film like this can hopefully inspire, kids to, come together and not be on their devices and interact with each other that way. So I'm hoping that film will have legs in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how people have connected to the film on so many different levels, and sports is definitely one of them too. So it's been fun to see that there are different sort of ways in to connect to the film.
Let's see, one group of lines I like from the film is it was said that funny thing about change is not everyone is ready for it, but those who are often become unexpected heroes. So I just love that line, the unexpected heroes. And I think, making this film, I think the two of you have become unexpected heroes with this film. So in the way, you impact the lives of each other. I hope you feel that way.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's an honor.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank the both of you for your time today. So, and anything else that we should be looking out for in the near future?
I think, well, it's going to be, we're writing.
Okay.
So hopefully
there'll be something to see.
Yeah.
Yes, I look forward to it. I hopefully, our paths will cross again. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank you.
best wishes to the both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us today.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about our upcoming film festival, please visit us at clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.